The conversation, she said she was good. If that changes, she's
So, anybody want to get us started? Any thoughts? Yeah, Carol.
Hi, my name's Carol. I'm a person in long-term recovery.
Oh, people can hear you.
Hi. So, my name is Carol Cruz. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I know a great point from Calvin over. Great to meet you, Edie, and also Chief. I thought this documentary film was extraordinary. I had seen, I think it was about 2 years ago, you started putting it out on social media, and I was like, where was I? I want to be in that. You know, because like I said, I'm connected to Chuck. Chuck and I worked at the same place. He's still there. Daryl, we've done some things together. Also connecting Calvin. Well, all of you have been in some way, shape, or form in my walk, my recovery. And I just thought everything that you pointed out in there in regards to trauma. I know we don't have all night, and good to hearing just from me, but I think you just touched on every point that a lot of people don't want to talk about, you know, and you gave those that don't have a voice or haven't used their voice or don't know how to use their voice, a voice through this documentary. So I really, you know, great hard work, and thank you for all of that. Do you have just a couple comments that, and it was great to hear from the young lady, and I was just wondering, the other 3 women that I have met on my journey, and why they weren't also featured with a little bit of their story. I think that would just may have brought a little bit more balance in there. But again, the zooming in of the farm and your chickens and you know, the gentleman doing the farming, I think it made it feel like home, you know, and it was very diverse. And you know, I'm a biracial woman, and it definitely spoke from all corners of my life. So I thank you for that.
I can answer the question about, so 13 people, I sent an email out and said who would like to be in the film. 13 people responded and we filmed them. We had 0 budget, so it was shot in my home, and we didn't know each other. Some of us knew each other, some didn't. And it was who showed up got in the film. Then it was if it rained. I mean, it's just random. So if you were talking and it was raining on my skylight, which the filmmaker wanted to stop, she wanted to run upstairs and make it stop, and we couldn't. If you happen to be talking then, and some of the women were, then you're cut because we didn't have the funding to refilm. So what you're seeing is the best we could do. I mean, we had all great people.
Okay.
So some of it's fate, and then some of it's if we ran out of money before we did your second interview, then we couldn't feature you. So we got around to Chuck, we got to Daryl, we got to Kelvin, but we didn't make it to everyone. Yeah. And so therefore it becomes uneven because we're aware as an all-female film team that we're short on women in the film. And we're trying to keep it to 60 minutes because the audience, you might be interested in it because you know everybody, but we want to take this on the road and show it to people who are not familiar with recovery, and they're not going to want to stay for more than an hour. So the other is, what do you cut? Right? So we're looking at the other day, we were editing, and we're like, oh, we want to add this picture of Calvin as a teenager. Well, that's a minute, so who gets cut? It's like, well, it can't be Daryl, it can't be Chuck, not going to be me. You know, who actually, I would be really happy if it was me. So this is the reality of doing a film. I'm a social worker, I'm not a filmmaker. But the realities of trying to make a film. First, I had no idea how expensive it would be and how time consuming and how wonderful it would be and tedious some days. And then there are decisions that are made for you can't make. You know, like we wanted Nadine Burke-Harris to let us interview her. We chased Gabor Mate. I mean, you wouldn't believe what we had to do to get that man.
Yeah.
And it was like kismet that we got him. It happened. I was in New York that day. I don't go to New York. I'm a country girl. You know, I was in New York at a wedding. He was there. I've been stalking him on the internet. I'm like, please, please, please. I got a friend to ask him. It was really ridiculous what we did. And we're doing the same with Nadine right now. So if anybody knows Nadine Burke-Harris, we're like on her. She's like, she loves me in email. but I can't get her to just let me interview her on the internet, like in Skype. So to answer your question, we're painfully aware of some.
Yeah.
There's so many things you want to cover, right? So I go, hours of footage of each person, and you take 5 minutes. Everything that Chuck says I love, and you've got to find the 5-minute bite to put in. So, but thank you for the question, because it is something we think about a lot.
And just one quick thing, and I'm sorry. It was just a little
She's like our
confusing.
reporter, she's got a pattern.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I knew she was going to be a problem when she sat in the front
Yeah, I
row.
know.
You don't say something.
I know we're such. I'm just very observant. So the one part that was just a little confusing, and maybe it was because you had to cut, was the transition from the social worker from the calls, and then right into the gentleman from harm reduction. Like it just kind of didn't fit. Like it was like something got cut and it wasn't a finishing of either one of their part of the discussion.
I should watch it. We're doing a deep edit in 2 weeks, so I'll look at that again. Yeah, we'll look at that, Edie.
Yep.
Thank you for your questions.
So regarding Nadine, she was here in Connecticut through Clifford Beers. You might want to call Alice Forrester. Because I missed it. I didn't know she was here, but Alice probably has a way to put you in touch.
Ah,
Great, thank you.
Colette knows everybody.
You know everybody.
Alice Forrester.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm a person in recovery. Thank you so much for inviting me, Kathleen. I found my voice like literally a month ago when I went to Recovery Fest in Rhode Island. And one of the things that I became really aware that one of the reasons that I stayed sober this time was because I experienced joy. And one of the things that I saw in your movies and other documentaries, there's always, compassion and explanation. I love when there's always the medical part of it. I would have loved to see more joy. So one of the things that when I found my voice a month ago, I started an organization with my friend to organize fun events and to actually fund people in early recovery who are broke and can't afford to have fun. So that's just one of my, but thank you, the documentary is phenomenal. I loved it. I loved seeing Connecticut and people from Connecticut here, so that's my comment.
What's the name of your organization?
Glorious Recovery.
Nice.
Yeah.
What kind of fun things do you do?
Oh, everything. So,
We're doing an ugly sweater party. Right?
Can you bring her mic
I
back?
can speak louder.
Missed that, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, it really started, with just getting together in my house, and because I'm an introvert, I was having a hard time with talking to people, so I would invite everybody and they can talk to each other. And we would play games, and people that had a lot of recovery really enjoyed it. So then a couple years ago I actually organized a Yankee game where 50 sober people just got on the train and enjoyed a Yankee game. And if you're a month sober, it's hard to go to a Yankee game, right? So if you're surrounded by 50 sober people, it's a little bit easier to do that. We go to concerts, we have bonfires. Right now we're organizing a Christmas party with a band and food and
It's not
funny
just
Christmas
any kind
game.
of Christmas party. It's an ugly sweater Christmas party.
So our focus is really to bring out that joy and laughter, because at the end of the day, like I say, the 12-step recovery program saved my life, but I need more. I need to live in this world, and it's really hard to do that when you first come into recovery. So I want to bring those newcomers in a safe environment and bring out that laughter so they can start to learn how to talk like me.
That's awesome. Where are you based out of?
Out of Trumbull, Connecticut.
Trumbull? Okay.
Glorious Recovery. And the name comes from, so when I went to Recovery Fest and Macklemore was the headliner and he was singing his Glorious, his tune Glorious, which is quite famous, and 10,000 people, sober people, alcoholics and addicts that seen dark places, they were all up, hands in the air, just having glorious time.
Mhm.
And that was my change. Like, I have goosebumps right now, so that's how I said glorious recovery.
Mhm.
That's where the name came from. So,
That's awesome.
Wow.
so it's Glorious Recovery Foundation. We're registered and, you know, all that jazz. So.
Another person that should have been in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can always do another movie.
Yeah.
We'll do the fundraising. We both have nonprofits, so we'll do the fundraising. We're
Get some
experts.
money together and then call us.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions or thoughts, or I want to mention to the panel, anybody in the film that you want to ask a question of?
It was amazing. Thank you so much for your participation in the film. I just want to say that as a parent, that tree with all of those words really struck a very strong chord with me, because so much of what I was struggling to try to read and so much of what you were all saying was just so very real a part of my life. That was really brave and a really amazing strategy, Hope, to help people to find their voice and express themselves. Thank you for that.
I don't know, does anybody want to comment on the experience? Because I don't think I actually told you we were going to do that before you came to the house.
Anybody have a thought?
Yeah, Daryl?
Yeah, it was weird because I didn't know Hope, so she was like, yeah, someone said she was doing something, and we talked on the phone, and she was like, yeah, come to my house, we're gonna do this movie, and I'm like, oh, man, what?
And you heard there were chicken wings gonna be?
No, she wasn't clear, she just said, come to my house, we're gonna do this movie, and I was like, yeah, man, I don't know about that,
Have some food.
but she did say there was gonna be some food there, so I, you know, if anyone knows you pay me in food, you know, I will come, but the actual experience to be there, and you guys can feel it through the movie. And I wanted to say I appreciate you guys staying, because it is late and you guys worked, but this is important work that we do, and working with this population. And I know like a few of you in the room, so I know your dedication to this cause and the work that we do. But to be a part of this project, and actually doing the tree and actually having to peel back the onion and actually look at some of the things that, you know, that are that we've experienced in life. I remember being asked to speak at an event about trauma, and the guy was like, so what are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about the sexual abuse, or are you going to talk about physical abuse? And I was like, yeah, nah, because that's not my reality. But the real trauma that happened to me when I was 6 years old, my dad left. And that was like my real first traumatic experience that led to more trauma of, you know, just living in that violent environment and being, you know, the man of the house at 6 years old. And what that experience was like to have all of that. Those of you that are parents, imagine telling your 6-year-old that you're now the man of the house and having to experience being that person. So 6 is out, and now you think in your brain that you're responsible for making sure your brother gets on the bus and so on and so forth. So there's so many different things. So for me, I didn't have sexual trauma or that, but I did experience trauma, and I didn't even know all the things that I had experienced was even trauma until we had this time together. And so for me, that was like, the tree was very symbolic. Every time I see it, and when we, you know, I talk about my dad in the film, and they catch it where I look away, and I never knew that it bothered me still. And if you look when I look away, I was like, wow, it was so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's in your head when it's
Yeah.
so poignant.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that, Daryl, because even, you know, learning about trauma, you know, how I grew up, we didn't talk about trauma. You know, the label, use the word trauma, and you know, when you think of the word trauma, you think of something like very serious, you know, and it was to really when I took you know, Dr. Steffi Goberton's Lynch trauma group, where I learned about trauma and the different experiences that I've been through in my life was traumatic, and how I experienced that. And you know, it's, you know, we learned about the big T's and the little T's, but how I looked at it, you know, we either, you know, tell it to, you know, bring it to Jesus or get some liquor, you know. So we have ways of dealing with different experiences in our lives that we didn't even know that it was traumatic, and how it affected our worldview and the way we looked at situations, you know. So being a part of this film was able to kind of like see that, and it got much deeper once I took training on men's trauma and what that actually mean, and how it really, you know, helped to frame my worldview and the way I look at different experiences. So this was a, you know, very powerful documentary to be a part of, and you know, it was just interesting to be with a whole bunch of different people from all walks of life, and you know, it seemed like it's subjective. You know, what's traumatic for me, it might not be traumatic for the next person, or how I processed that, how I took it and kind of like dealt with that pain, and it might have been maladaptive to society, but how I processed it, it was like very enlightening for me. And even just going through my own experience right now with, you know, tragically losing my brother, I realized that's traumatic, you know, and how that really changed my worldview and how I looked at certain things. But I can honestly say that I don't have to reach for the alcohol, the cocaine, the heroin, and all the other substances and behaviors that I did for a very long time to deal with that emotional pain, to deal with that distress, to deal with those traumatic experiences, to deal with that chronic toxic stress in my life. So it just was enlightening to be a part of the documentary, insightful for me, and just realize that, okay, I can live life on life terms without the use of alcohol and other drugs, and really share my experience, strength, and hope with other people that are seeking recovery. So thank you, Hope. Tory.
I never thought I had trauma in early childhood. I kept, you know, everything was a secret for me. When I first started seeing Hope, you know, it took me probably, I don't know if you know this or not, maybe 2 years before I really trusted Hope to really lay the things out there. But even though, you know, through the years I was, you know, honest and open with Hope, I still never talked about most of the things that are in the movie with anyone until, you know, I went to Hope's house for that retreat, and I heard other people talking about it. I said, wow, I'm really not alone, even though, you know, I had come to terms with it, you know, through therapy, talk therapy, EMDR, all that stuff. But to be in a room with, you know, other people that are, you know, talking about the same things, it was very empowering for me. And yeah, it really, I think brought my recovery to a, you know, even a higher level, you know. So that's the impact that this has had on me. So thanks.
Folks, yeah?
Hi, everybody. Excuse me, Kathleen.
Did you bring your own microphone?
I
You just like reach down in your pocketbook and just pull it up, you know?
I live with a microphone, so I got a lot to say. So I want to do the sequel as well with Alexa and Carol.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm
All
also
girls.
in long-term
Awesome.
in recovery.
She also has a mic.
And thank you all. Thank you for this film. Very powerful. And I think about the roots, you know, uprooting, and having a conversation with Colette today about, you know, my path and wanting to be working in the world of treatment, and then slowly going toward prevention work. And I think uprooting it and bringing this to light and healing ourselves, we're also helping
open up the conversation so that we can help this stop prior to, you know, us getting older and going and looking at our past, that we can actually talk about this stuff when we're with children. So thank you for that. And police officer on the end, thank you. Wow. I was just curious if you work with other police departments, anybody trying this out, working with you in your area? Do you go to any national, regional? And I will stop because I asked the question, so please.
Okay. Well, the neat part is I'm training in Manchester, Connecticut, and that's why I was able to come down here. And really what I do as a social worker is I train peer support teams for first responders. Because I found since riding ambulances since I was 16 years old, and being a volunteer firefighter and a police officer for 33 years, the traumatic events that I have experienced that you wouldn't even want to know. And I couldn't even tell my family, couldn't tell anybody. It's painful, it's absolutely painful, but well worth it because all the lives that I have touched, I'm blessed with that and passing that along. So coming into recovery, when 2.5 years ago I started this program, it kind of made sense to me because I've been helping first responders get into treatment because cops and firefighters and paramedics can't come out and say, I'm a heroin addict, you know, or I'm an alcoholic, because they're gonna lose their job, they're gonna lose everything. So I've done a lot under the table, and then I've spent 20 years starting peer support teams all around the world. And that's probably what I'm more well known for, not knowing this was gonna happen. I'm just a person in long-term recovery, paying it forward. And so this program started in Gloucester, Massachusetts,
Yes.
with the Tory. So I researched everything, and I found, you see court diversion programs, and they're all important, absolutely, I believe in that, but I said to myself, how can we help people before they get in the criminal justice system? And, why don't we make that a priority of helping people before they get into that system? I was a police officer in Ossining in Westchester County and all that, and I've just seen the devastation of the crack, and we don't talk about that. It was bad, I'm just telling you, and no one cared because it was a minority community, and it was inner city. And the things and the murders and the death scenes that I have seen, and I vowed as a police officer, lowly young police officer, that when I get in a position, I'm going to make a difference. And so this came about, and I didn't see a better model out there. So, and I taught my officers in the buy-in that who are we to judge someone else's sins? And I found for me, Jesus Christ is my Savior. I'm a born-again Christian, and changed my life, and that's why I'm in long-term recovery, and He died for my sins. So I think that was important for me to come forward and come out of the shadows. I think more people, there are very successful people in this world in recovery, and I still get, when I speak, people come up to me, by the way, I'm friends of Bill W. Just want you to know. Or else they'll say this, I'm in recovery, just alcohol though, just want you to know. It's not that other stuff. For alcohol, it's all good. So, and I'm like, ooh, whoa, so, and then I started this program with no money. We're a part-time police department. I have a full-time job besides serving my community. All my officers have full-time jobs, and they decided to serve their community as police officers for $16 an hour. So it's not about the money, it's not about that. And my yearly budget to run a whole police department with salaries, gas, cars is $180,000 a year. Wow. So when we took this on, it was illogical that we could do this. And 208 souls have walked in, and we found beds for 100% of the people. We never turned anybody away. I thought, who would come in to the police station and go, I'm a heroin addict, can you help me, cops? And it just was illogical. So then we come in, but the thing I learned from Gloucester, and this is kind of important, and this documentary touches me because it is personal, by the way. Every person up here, it's personal. Was the success rate of Gloucester their first year was 50% of the people who walked into the police department asking for help stayed clean and sober their first year. The national average is 5%.
Yeah.
Okay? Through the roof. But it makes sense. They're ready for recovery. They're walking into a police station saying help. So why was it? Two things happened. Right before the cops said goodbye and they walked into a treatment center, each person who stayed clean and sober said, the cop looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and said two things to me. You're a good person deep inside, and you can do this. That's all it took. And I walked out of Gloucester going, that's all it takes? You gotta be kidding me. But we represent the community, don't we? That's what that person saw. It wasn't the police, it was the community saying those two things. And so our success and our training was, you're a good person and you can do this. You can walk in, we will not judge anything about you. And I'm telling you, they call it the miracle in Chatham. It's well known in the Albany district area as Chatham Cares for You is the miracle in Chatham. No one knows. We are shaming everybody. We're shaming the mental health community. We're shaming the medical community. We're shaming the criminal justice community. We're shaming any police chief that says, I don't have the resources and I don't have the people to do this. How can a bunch of part-time police officers do this?
No money.
And now the government's throwing millions of dollars at this, you know, and I've been on meetings and I'm saying millions of dollars isn't gonna fix this, folks. It's the will. It's the will of my officers. It's the will of our community angels. It's the will of a Chatham community coming together saying, you come forward. It's the will of the metrics that we received from University of Albany School of Public Health has researched us from the beginning. We have the numbers, we have all the metrics on this, and no one cares.
We care.
We care.
Well, and so I think I got something. So yes, this is what I'm hearing when I was invited a month ago to the White House on the opioid epidemic, which is pretty cool. I'll just tell you as an American. Like, and I'm walking into the White House going, I'm a Democrat. It's okay. You know, like, I have a progressive idea and not arrest our way out of this. And the first thing every DEA agent that spoke, Kellyanne Conway spoke, and you're hearing today, we can't arrest our way out of this. We didn't hear that 2.5 years ago when I started this. We cannot arrest our way out of this. So if we can't arrest our way out of this, then what are we doing? We're dumping money with no research of our effectiveness. And so, you know, not that, I don't know why I just got on this, but I'm on my soapbox now. Work with the chief here, work with the chief. But it's this room here, and it's this documentary that is so important. And when I have any time, I will go to this documentary and stand in front of anybody. Because somebody has to stand up. Don't think I haven't been pummeled professionally and personally. Don't think phone calls weren't made that I'm unfit as a police chief. But my village board has stood beside me. I've had people stand beside me going, this guy's got something. I think he's right. We can't arrest our way out of this, and why don't we help people before they get in the criminal justice system? And I've proven people will come forward if they know they're going to a safe place. And one of the number one reasons is I came out of shadows having recovery. That's why they're coming in. Because they say, Chief, I know your officers won't judge. And when they come in, they're sitting there going, I just admitted I'm a heroin addict, and you shook my hand, said congratulations, and you're helping finding a treatment bed. This is weird, I've never been in a police station, you know, and we've even transported. And like we said, get in the front seat. And they're like, what? No, you can sit in the front seat with us while we transport. And the community angel sits in the back seat. And like they're sitting in the front seat going, wow. Front of a police car is pretty cool. I'm usually in handcuffs when I'm in a police car. This is really different. And from that, our community now says, any problem you have, go to Chatham Police. So we're getting towns around us with their problems coming to our officers. And they're like, it's not our jurisdiction. Yeah, but you guys will listen to us. Go to Chatham Police. Go to Chatham Police. And our crime, my last thing, and then I'm going to give this up because I can pull it over. Our Chatham Police 2 years ago was deemed the safest village statistically in all of New York State villages. Crime didn't go up, crime went down in the village. Makes sense though, doesn't it? You want a crime prevention program? Let's just take out of helping those people. You look at a law enforcement, and you want a crime prevention program that's the most effective, this program will lower crime, I guarantee you that. We have saved over $750,000 of heroin being used. That's a conservative estimate of this program. By not arresting one person, we have dropped crime, we have stopped the use of drugs. We can't stop the supply, let's try to lower demand. This is economics 101. So, thank you. And I will stand up to any village, any town, any police officers, I will stand up. Don't worry, as you can see, I don't have a fragile ego. You can attack me, you can say sticks and stones will break my bones. My grandmother was so right, right, when she said that when I was a kid. And I will stand up in law enforcement saying, it's insane. Insanity is doing the same thing for the past 30 years, expecting a different outcome. We are in an insanity now trying to wrest our way out of this. 1/3 of people at least are in a jail, are in there on $100 bail or less for simple possession because they can't afford bail. And they're stuck in a jail. That's ridiculous. And then withdrawal in a jail is Gatorade, by the way, in New York State. It's inhumane. Absolutely. So I will speak up for all the reforms that are necessary and safe consumption sites. By the way, they said, we can't have that. I said, we already have safe consumption sites in our, you know what they're called? A bar for alcohol. That is safe consumption sites in the United States. So we already have them, right? So why is it different than other drugs? So I will stand up, I will do that, I will do anything for this. These folks here are heroes of mine. That's why I keep doing what I'm doing. We're like a family now, right? A little dysfunctional, but hey, we're still family. And we love each other deep inside, and it's a connection. And I'll tell you, I watch this, and I get a lump in my throat. Yeah. There's a connection here with all of you, even before I met you. And kudos to you, Edie, and to Tory, and to Hope, by creating something. And I don't know if you felt that connection. I've seen a lot of documentaries, and I haven't seen anything like this. So all I can say to you folks is, let's get this out there. Yeah.
We're working on it.
That's enough of me.
Okay, everybody probably wants to know what his day job is. He's a stand-up comedian.
He's just wearing the costume.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you so much, Chief Peter. And
We have a question here.
sure. And just real quick, like I want to touch on. I also serve on the board of directors for Manchester, Connecticut Uprooting Initiative with Chief Mark, and we're adopting the same motto in Manchester, Connecticut as well too, with the Manchester Police Department.
Good. Great.
I have a question. Now, is this the training, is this with Spectrum training that goes in Manchester, that goes to all the different, has all training of all the police departments? Is that where you were?
No, this is PARI, P-A-A-R-I.
Okay.
Police assisted, I forgot.
Recovery Initiative.
Recovery Initiative, right? Police
different.
Addicted and Assisting a Recovery Initiative. So there's a standardized policies, there's standards for police to follow, but every community is different, so we had to adjust our model for Chatham compared to where our Connecticut. But there are Connecticut police departments now that are saying, hey, this model is pretty good, it may work.
Did you ever bring it up or when you were at the White House, that this be part of the curriculum at the police academy?
Yes.
Because I think that's where it needs, just as we spoke before, my daughter fell through the cracks. And I just think that it needs to begin at when they're cadets. To start conditioning them at that point in time. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Top leadership
Distributing
has to
this
buy in.
film to police academy.
Each state creates their own standards of training. So there's no national model. So you'd have to get into the Connecticut Division of Criminal Justice Services to make that model change. But it goes back to that war on drugs. We got, one thing I say as chief, I'll just say, compared to other agencies, my officers are not warriors. They are guardians of our community. And police have to get away from that word that we're warrior mentality and war on drugs and war on poverty and war on racism. And I say to my officers, take that word out of our vocabulary. Because when we go at war, there's expected casualties. We are not at war in our community. We are not warriors, we are guardians. So that's a change that has to happen. So change is that mindset.
Yes, and that was the point of the film, is to start this kind of conversation, right? And you don't know who watches the film and where they go after. You know, so we came down here tonight, some of us drove quite a bit to be here. It's that we figure if we show the film, we start these conversations. You can't in a 60-minute documentary get them every point made, but this is what happens. So Chief brings this up, right, at this conversation. This hasn't happened before. We've talked about trauma and others. It depends on the audience. But that's what the film is supposed to be used for, is you show it for an hour, you bring people in the film, you talk to the audience, and that's how change is gonna happen. When I said it's from the root up, I mean everything. I don't mean it's on the personal responsibility of the person who has the addiction. I mean, we need to change as human beings. We have to treat other human beings with compassion and love. We have to open doors for them. We don't lock them up and punish them and expect they're gonna get sober that way. You know, and so Chief is involved with that, we're all involved with that. And that's the point of the film, is to incite a conversation. You can't cover it all, but it's enough so that people can get some ideas, and then they can go out and make that change. Because that's what we're hoping for here, is to institute something different, a different response, you know, from the ground up. Make sense? Maybe, I know it's getting late and people probably need to head home, but we could also continue conversations with you before you leave if there's anything you didn't get to say. I just don't want to hold people here any later. And I do appreciate you coming. Any last minute things from the panel, Daryl?
I really appreciate the Chief's comments. I'm actually going to go to Chatham because I've never ridden in the front of a police car. That's on my things to do list. That's on my things to do list. So, I mean, hey, I'm going to take some selfies. I'm going to be sending out pictures like, look, I'm in the front of a police car.
Selfie.
I have no cuffs on, so that has never been my experience. But if nothing else that you take away from here is the human component. You know, a lot of us work in this system and work for the system, and understanding, just like what the Chief described, you know, that handshake or that opportunity to say something human to someone else may save their life. You know, and if anything, those of you in leadership positions, we need to be teaching that to people that actually interact with people on a daily basis, because that's not happening. And it's not happening enough, and people are walking out feeling worse after seeing someone because of the us against them mentality. And it's just what people have been taught, and sometimes we don't realize. You know, I get to have an opportunity to speak to a lot of people around the world, and I'm just starting to see how social workers are, you know, they'll say, well, I never smoked crack, so I don't know how to interact with a person that has. So I'm like, well, how about treating them as a human being?
Right.
How about saying, hey, how's it going? You know, and having that interaction first, because a person was human before they actually decided to smoke crack, and that's the gap that we're missing. Police officers, well, I don't understand that. You know, my job is to arrest. Well, wait a minute. I've had many police officers tell me I'm not a social worker. Well, you kind of are. You are a social worker. You're in the social work business. You're interacting with human beings. And I think if nothing else that you get from this film, like each and every person, all we were trying to do is offer that human experience that, hey, you need a place to stay, we got that. We don't have a lot, but we got a place for you to stay and feel safe. Maslow's theory, right? We start with the safe, and then we go from there. And then it's kind of up to you, right? And we work with people like that. So if nothing else, that human experience and offering that, because, you know, at the end of the day, I call us Carol, many of us, you know, we changed the word from dope to hope, and, you know, we're hope dealers, and that's what we deal, big bags of hope. That's what we're selling today with this film.
Great.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Oh, you want to make a comment?
Yeah,
Do you
I
have your
promise.
mic- do you have
No
your
more
microphone?
comments about.
Listen, we're
yeah,
going to
just
charge
a-
her because I believe she
Just a
is,
quick
so.
comment. Just a quick comment. I'm sorry. So I want to thank you both for just bringing out the human concept, because there is a documentary that I got an opportunity to, well, not a documentary, like an interview that I got an opportunity to do here a couple years ago, talking to DCF workers, and it actually is a part of a training to DCF workers, because my first coach, I'm a recovery coach, I'm a certified recovery coach, but my first coach was my DCF worker. And she used to greet me. She was annoying as hell, but she would greet me at my door every day 24 years ago, almost 25 years ago, and say, "Hey Carol, what are we going to do to show up for life today?" And she would give me a hug. And I would be so tight and so resistant because of my trauma, because of everything that I had gone through, because I felt like an animal I had used during my pregnancy with my son. And today he's a 24-year-old thriving young man. And I'm blessed to be in recovery and have that person. Had she not treated me like a human being, I don't think I would be here today. I really don't. So that human connection is, when I see you, and this is what I tell my clients every day in detox, because they come walking, they make a decision to walk through the threshold of that door, whether it's conscious or unconscious. They made a huge decision for their recovery. And I said, you're not an addict. You made a decision to come into recovery. And I say, I see you. I see who you are. So let's work together to make that grow. And it's phenomenal. And I love what I do, and I love what you guys do. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.